right here in this moment, right now, you've tapped into your own serene island. Now imagine what it would be like to carry that sense of calm with you throughout the day, wherever you go, however you feel. What would it feel like to have that stable heart, no matter where you are or what's happening around you? It doesn't mean we become immune to the noise of the world, far from it. But it does mean we don't get swept away by it. We begin to notice that it has little control over our next thoughts and our responses. Remember, we are in control of how we respond, and this concept of solitude, an inner peace with inner presence of who we can be in this moment, this is what allows us to better manage our minds. This leads to the start of our resilient moments and our anti-fragile ways of growing stronger and becoming better than before. My name is Michael Shikatano, and this is Right Here, Right Now, a podcast to inspire the learner inside each of us. In a world that is full of so much information, we will help find and package that information so that you can use it in your lives every day in practical ways. And in each episode, we will remind you of the importance of being present and mindful of your daily thoughts, actions, and interactions. It is truly the most vital step to learning and growth, being mindful and present right here, right now, to take on life's challenges and turn them into life's lessons. So come on this venture with us, a new beginning, a new journey that starts right here, right now. Welcome back, people. I am Michael Shikatano, your host of Right Here, Right Now, the podcast that invites you to embrace the present moment and explore mindful living, one moment at a time, one breath at a time. The podcast that offers you a place of refuge from the noisy and often seemingly calamitous world around us. The podcast that invites each and every one of our beautiful community of loyal listeners to settle in and reflect and be at peace within ourselves on our journey to a better version of our most authentic selves than we ever thought possible. And today, people, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind, something in my heart that I've been trying to get a little better at, right? These are practices. We try them and look to find lessons in the ways we are better able to show up for ourselves and subsequently for the world we live in, for those in our world that need us. Today is about how we can harness the integrated healing power of solitude and mindfulness in a world that can feel overwhelmingly noisy and chaotic. This is what we might all be in great need of here. You see, I believe that the concept of solitude is not really given enough credit here for what it can do for each of us. And some may even look on with derision and judgment to those that actively seek out moments of solitude. I think there's a misunderstanding, and hopefully today, right here, right now, we can clear it up and embrace and harness the power of solitude. And what I think we need to try to understand to give this concept a bit more credence is that solitude is not about physical isolation. It's not about running off to a mountaintop or retreating deep into the forest to escape the noise of the world. Sounds pretty amazing, but that's not what this is all about. Certainly, you might find solitude in those physical places of isolation, but that's not the only place that we can find this. And that might be what we imagine when we hear the word solitude, right? Some of the superhero geeks among us might immediately think of the icy palace of our heroic friend, Superman, in his fortress of solitude. But real solitude is much deeper than that. It is very interesting how the word solitude really has perhaps a sort of negative connotation here. In fact, I use an app on my device that allows me to quickly look up some synonyms to help me in my writing. You know, those built in thesaurus apps. And some of the words that come up for solitude are aloneness, withdrawal, seclusion, isolation, loneliness. And these sometimes seem a bit harsh as they may have this sense of a passive concept. Today, let's see if we can embrace a mindset we are looking for the capacity to wield a form of mindfulness in our solitude, that we can connect better with ourselves for a better connection with the world we live in, and employ its heroic impact on our mindful moments we show up for. Again, another tool to aid in our journey to a better version of the person we need to be. Let us try to imagine that solitude is about finding a quiet place within ourselves, a place of peace, a place of calm, a place that has no physical space except that which it occupies in our minds and in our hearts. Solitude is something we can carry inside of us wherever we go. It's that stable heart, that steady center, which doesn't get swept away by the endless distractions, the worries about the future, the regrets of the past, or even the excitements of the present moment. Solitude is the ability to stand firmly within ourselves, to remain grounded, no matter what storms are swirling around us. And I hope to bring you a wonderful poem on stillness in the storm. I wrote it. It felt so wonderful to release, to discover what was happening inside of me. And I can't wait to share that. Maybe that'll be a bonus episode this week, people, right here, right now. And this solitude, it really, it's not easy, certainly not all of the time. In fact, I wouldn't have thought to create this episode right here, right now, if this was something that came naturally to all of us, especially when the world is constantly pulling us in 100 different directions. And we so easily can be swept away in a mindlessly frenetic way as we feel like we just need to keep up with all that is going on around us. But when we take refuge in our mindful moments with a mindful approach to our most reliable and stable superpower of a centering and mindful breath, we can come back to the present moment. And that's when we begin to access this beautiful, serene island within us. I've been thinking a lot about how this concept of solitude specifically helps us to heal. I believe that it is closely related to the concept of stillness. Last season's episode on stillness was one of our most popular and most downloaded episodes. Give it a try as well this week when you are searching for some stillness and a reflective moment of solitude. When we're overwhelmed, when our hearts feel heavy, or when we're caught in the grip of strong emotions, solitude can offer our hearts and our minds a refuge. It's not about shutting out the world, though, here, people. It's more about tuning in to what's happening inside of us in a gentle way, in a non judgmental and compassionate way here. And it is a deliberate act seeking this solitude within ourselves. There have been moments in my life where grief and sadness and tumult have felt a bit too big to handle, where sometimes, you pass that feeling of overwhelm so far you can't even see it in that rearview mirror any longer, as if the noise of it all was just too much, just too loud. And I used to think that the best way to cope was to push those feelings aside, to try to distract myself from the pain. I know I'm not alone. Maybe you are feeling this way in this very moment. So I'm glad you hit play. I'm glad that you are mindfully present in this moment, right here, right now. Let's keep going today together. What I've learned through my mindfulness practice is that solitude, the kind of active yet gentle and deliberate solitude we're talking about today, helps us heal because it invites us to sit with our feelings, not to fight them, not to push them down, but to acknowledge them, to let them exist without letting them take control, right? That saying, what we resist persists, right? If we attempt to push pain or other difficult thoughts or emotions away in some sort of metaphysical law of the universe, that pain or difficult thought or emotion pushes back even harder. And we must believe that we can palliate the pain through this practice of being with the pain in a gracious and open and loving way. And there is another nice quote about controlling our thoughts here as we begin to let them go or learn that we have the capacity to let them go. This was by Dan Millman. He said, "You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you." Powerful. I have this little quote hanging in my office at work. It's so meaningful. It's so powerful. We don't let our thoughts become reality. We know we must accept them, let them pass by. And most importantly, we don't really have to try to control them. Just be aware. You just have to stop letting those thoughts control you. And of course, this is not at all easy. In fact, these are some of the most difficult things we need to begin to try to do to improve our mindset and emotional states here, people. Our psychological well being is so dependent on how we deal with challenges. We know they're coming, they won't stop. And so we can get a little specific in some of the practical ways we can show up for our moments of solace that we are searching for within ourselves. So let's get into how we can find this solitude in our lives, right? And of course, we'll go back to the breath and let's go a little deeper into why our breath wields such power to help us be calm and help us be still. Where we know and certainly could all use a gentle reminder here of how mindful breathing can prime this practice of solitude. In fact, mindful breathing can prime so much of the tools that we wield to become better versions of who we ought to be in our worlds, right? Focusing on our breath or mindful breathing is a powerful tool because it bridges the connection between the mind and the body. And this was fascinating when I really thought of this and heard this somewhere along the line. I jotted it down. The breath is unique in that it's both automatic, right? We don't have to think about it. and something we can consciously control. And that offers us a direct way to influence our physical and mental states, right? There's this very human need, an instinctual propensity even to be in control of some of the things in our world. Even though I just said we're not really in control of a lot, right? We know we have little control of many things in our world, but the breath is one thing we can use as a way to focus, as a way to control, as a way to propel us into the next moment of our life. It is very reliable, doing its thing, right? The breath. When we are mindlessly unaware of our breathing, it shows up for us. And when we need to use our breath to settle into a moment of stillness or peace or solitude, it again shows up a bit more pliable for us to manage, perhaps control even, mostly to just focus on. When we breathe mindfully, we can shift our nervous system, calming stress responses and helping our body return to balance. This simple act of focusing on the breath anchors us in our present moments, and it allows us to navigate those challenges with more clarity and composure. In moments of stillness and solitude, mindful breathing can offer a sense of grounding, helping us access the inner peace we seek, even during those difficult times. By regulating our breath, we regulate our thoughts and emotions, providing a gentle yet powerful tool to face the ups and downs of life. And this takes practice here, people, right? We can begin to use our breath in moments where nothing seems to be helpful. We can take a slow and deep breath as you focus on every molecule of air going in and then being released. It has been an anchor in many of my difficult moments. And I have also not tapped into its power in all of the moments when it would have been quite helpful, right? These practices, we know about them. We know we can try to employ them when we need it most, but we're not perfect at this, people. We have to be compassionate. I know almost every day I could have been more mindful and have taken a few more deep and focused breaths in going through my life. But we're not hard on ourselves. We treat ourselves with compassion here and we move on. And when I focus on my breath, I come back to the present. I remind myself that the past is gone, no longer a need for any attachment to the past. We take those lessons and move forward. The future hasn't arrived yet, and we are mindful in our present moments of how we need to show up in this moment for our future selves. And right here, right now, we are in the only place we need to be. And all I have to do is breathe and focus on just this breath. Notice the breathing. And specifically notice that we can go even deeper in noticing that the power of our breath can be supercharged when we can be more aware of that space between our breaths, right? Another moment of stillness that I find healing and reassuring, knowing that right behind one breath, one inhalation even, is the beginning of another breath. I find a place of rest, a place where my heart can catch its breath too. It seems difficult to imagine that such a powerful approach to our lives can be this simple. It sounds simple, though. We must begin the practice for knowing when we need that breath and then employing its power. It's far from a simple task here, people. It really does start with something as simple as taking that mindful breath and then noticing what it does to your body, to your mind. We can close our eyes here right now if you can. Take a deep breath in. Feel the air filling your lungs and then slowly exhale. Notice the sensation of your body settling in as you breathe out. Right here in this moment, right now, you've tapped into your own serene island. Now imagine what it would be like to carry that sense of calm with you throughout the day, wherever you go, however you feel. What would it feel like to have that stable heart, no matter where you are or what's happening around you? It doesn't mean we become immune to the noise of the world, far from it, but it does mean we don't get swept away by it. We begin to notice that it has little control over our next thoughts and our responses. Remember, we are in control of how we respond, and this concept of solitude, an inner peace with inner presence of who we can be in this moment, this is what allows us to better manage our minds. This leads to the start of our resilient moments and our anti fragile ways of growing stronger and becoming better than before. When we live with this kind of mindful solitude, or at least the capacity for this mindful solitude, we start to hear the quieter voices inside us. The ones that remind us we're okay, that we're capable of healing, that we're capable of getting through this moment, that we don't need to chase after happiness or push away our sadness. Everything we need is already within us, within our reach, within our hearts, within our minds, when we don't push it away. In a noisy world here, people, solitude can feel like a radical act, something not within our reach, right? Sometimes it's very difficult to tap into this. Be gentle on yourself. It is a practice that needs a deliberate approach, noticing its capacity in those little moments. To lead with stillness is the superpower here, people. It's a choice to step away from the chaos, not by escaping it, but by grounding ourselves in the present moment, in the midst of the chaos. This mindful solitude helps us heal by reminding us of our inner strength. It teaches us that no matter what's happening in our lives, whether we're grieving, anxious, or simply feeling overwhelmed, there's a calm center inside of us where we can always find refuge. As I close this episode, I want to leave you with a simple practice, a practice we have employed right here, right now, on a few episodes. When you feel the noise of the world getting too loud, take a few moments for that mindful breathing. Come back to the present. Remind yourself of that beautiful, serene island within you, right? It's always there, ready to welcome you home. And if you begin one mindful breath at a time, in the moment where we are seeking solitude and stillness, it may be helpful once again to ask yourself this: what am I able to control in my world right now to make my next moment a more mindful one? And maybe in this moment, you begin with recognizes that you can only control your very next breath. And by focusing on that breath and slowing it down a bit and being more mindfully aware of your breath, even for just this moment, a moment that serves us with the compassion we deserve to show up for ourselves in our next moments so that we can show up for all those that we care for in our world, right here, right now. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast where we bring you practical thoughts and pragmatic insights to begin our journey. I hope you find a bit of peace, a bit of solitude as you move through your day. Be present, Be mindful. Be gentle in your practice of solitude as you embrace its healing impact. And remember, healing doesn't always happen in big, dramatic moments. It happens little by little, breath by breath, moment by moment, right here, right now. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, right here, right now.